a lot of people get this entirely wrong about marketing. They think it's like the reason why my game failed is marketing. No, it's not. The reason why your game failed is because it wasn't fun or it wasn't appealing enough. You can make a game in 1 year, or you can make the same game in 5 years. So we could have made Throne for like 3 times longer. We could have extended the production times to 3 times its size. But that doesn't mean it would have done better. I think it's a good idea to explore different ideas, because it is much, much easier to select a good idea than to design a good idea or to design a good concept, right? You know, if you find yourself just staring into the screen, like half an hour passes and you suddenly wake up and are like, oh, what else am I doing? That's when you know maybe you should take a bit of a break. There was a university project, so it was basically just 3 students making that game. And it ended up selling 100,000 of copies. So that was a great start.
Firstly, thank you for doing this, Jonas. I've been playing your games and I've been watching your content also. And super grateful that you basically agreed to do this. I would request you to just, give a quick introduction about you so that people who are not really, familiar with could actually understand it better.
Hi, I'm Jonas. I'm an indie game developer. I made games such as Islanders, Will You Snail, and Thronefall. So Will You Snail was a game that I developed solo. The other 2 I co-developed with friends, and all three of them have been fairly successful, I would say, for my standards, like small team standards. And I also have a YouTube channel where I talk about game design. I co-created Islanders in a team of 3. There was a university project, so it was basically just 3 students making that game. And it ended up selling 100,000 of copies. So that was a great start. And then I made Will You Snail alone. And now recently I released Thronefall, which we made in a team of 2. So one person from the original Islanders team and Friedemann left to other ventures. So yeah.
So yeah, it's total of 3 at max. But
Yes.
while you are doing this Islanders, while in your college itself, did you actually think of it as a commercial project, or was it just like for fun?
Yeah, to clarify, we met at game school, so everybody there was already interested in becoming game developer. And although I did an internship at Mimimi Productions, where I realized that making games in bigger teams is not really for me. And so yeah, the goal was definitely to make something commercial, like, or at the very least try, right? Because the 3 of us, we already dabbled a little bit with going into the corporate world, and all of us didn't really like it. So it was like time to give India a shot, and luckily it worked out. Yeah.
That's pretty cool, man. Because India, from an Indian standpoint, we don't have a lot of game schools in India, and we hope like in the next 3-5 years we'll have such kind of institutes where when you do it, you're already thinking about the commercial angle of the games or the projects that you're building. But pretty cool to see this happening in the other parts of the world. And of course India is quite behind in terms of the development skills or talent or experience overall. But yeah, it's very fascinating. I also remember seeing something like this when I visited Germany 4-5 years back. There was a school called Game House also happening. Similar things happening there. So yeah, I just hope something like that happens very very soon in India too.
So do you think India has some catching up to do? Like at the least, I think for my YouTube channel, like a quite sizable portion of my audience is also
Yeah, yeah,
Indian.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think there's definitely some interest and people passionate about making games there, right?
So there is a big shift that has happened in the last 2 years in India. A
Mhm.
lot of independent developers at this point as we speak. There are around 100 games that have been made on the PC side. Not all the games are out yet, but there are few games which have come out. There's a game called Venba, if you heard, it won a couple of awards as well. But there
Mhm.
are hundreds of these games, and probably in the next year or 2 years, you'll see a lot of independent games coming from India on the global stage. Probably very small ones, but it's the start for the community.
The sm- the small ones can be just as successful. Like our games are all very very small, so size very much does not matter for indie
Yeah,
games.
yeah, yeah,
I feel like.
absolutely. You're right. So I'm actually curious to understand your journey, right? How did your game development journey begin? Because you went into the game school, but before that, did you even think of, like, when did you exactly think that this is your path and you have to make a decision that you have to go to the game school?
It started very, very early because I just liked playing a lot of games. I think that's how it starts for every developer. You just like playing games, and then one day you ask yourself, what would it take to make one of these? You sort of get curious, and I was obviously in a very lucky situation with my environment and the support I got. My father was also a programmer, so he introduced me to a program called Game Maker,
Yeah.
and I used that for like 10 years. Like when I was 11, I started making games in Game Maker, and then I just never stopped. I got hooked. And I have like folders with hundreds and hundreds of Game Maker projects. And it wasn't always entirely obvious that I want to go into game development, because like there's always this very risky job. You never know if this works out and so on. So parents are a bit nervous about it, and also you yourself, you never really know if this is an actual job you can earn money with, right? So at some point I was like playing with the thought of also going to film school or something. But it's just you try a couple of things and then you realize they're not for you, and then at some point it clicks and it's like, duh, obviously I should just make games. Like that's what I've been doing all my
Yeah.
life,
But
so
does that does
that's
that
probably what I should do. Yeah.
but does that happen in other parts of the world as well, when it comes to game development as a career? Because that's a big thing in India for sure at this point, because it's not really treated as a career, as a full-time career yet.
Yes. There, I feel like even in Germany, there's still that stigma a little bit. Like, if you tell your parents you want to make games for a living, they do get quite nervous, especially if you tell them you want to make indie games and you don't want to work like in a big studio or something. Obviously, it's probably a bit different here, but it's also hard for me to say because, quite frankly, I think I'm very much in a bubble. I also don't travel a lot. I'm not super familiar with other parts of the world, which is something I need to do some catching up on, hopefully sometime. Especially India. I'm really curious to check out India. Gotta go there sometime. Yeah, but yeah, it's just like that in Germany. Like we it's getting better and better. Like people see it as a job more and more, but it's like not there yet entirely, I feel like.
Yeah, yeah. But then what made you move to this? Like, because you were thinking of doing something in the media and entertainment as well, in the film school, right? You said.
Mhm.
And then how did you land in a game school eventually?
Mm, I just research. Maybe I just had a look at my options. Like when one door closes, you start looking for the next doors, right? Like while I was at art school, I tried dabbling with making films a bit more, and I was on some real sets, and I very quickly realized that it's not for me. Like I'm an introvert. I like sitting in front of a screen by myself, and these film sets, there are lots and lots of people. It's also a lot of waiting for things to happen and so on. But I just realized, nope, nope, not for me. And then when you realize that you don't like something, then you need to find a different option. And then I was like, okay, how about games? Are there any game schools? And that's how I found one in Berlin. It's called HTW Berlin,
Okay.
and I the bachelor's game design program there. In my opinion, I haven't seen any other game schools in Germany, but in my opinion, I think it's the best game school in Germany
Got it.
because they firstly they have a very nice application process where they only basically select the best applicants. And that is a good thing because if you manage to get in, then you have the very, very big bonus of having a really nice pre-vetted group, essentially, with very talented people. So you're surrounded by talented people that are all really there because they already have some interesting skills that you can learn from. And that makes for a fantastic environment. And then on top of that, the way they teach making games is just by basically letting you make games. So
Yeah.
they just let you loose and are like, here, you have like one entire semester to make a game. We'll support you. We'll give you some feedback. But that's pretty much it. Like you just make games in small teams. And that's the best way to learn games. So that
Awesome.
was fantastic, yeah.
Awesome. So did you really test multiple ideas, or was it like one go and you decided to make Islanders?
Yeah, when you make a game, I think it's a good idea to explore different ideas because it is much easier to select a good idea than to design a good idea or to
Yeah.
design a good concept, right? Selecting is always easier than designing or crafting. So it's like just create multiple things, and then when you see them all next to each other, you're very likely gonna be able to pick the best one. Whereas if you just design one thing, it's very unlikely that that one thing will be as good as the one thing you picked. So that's why people say quantity, like in a way, right? You know that you should put quality over quantity.
Yeah.
But the paradoxical thing is that quantity can also lead to quality.
Correct.
So in order to reach quality, you sometimes have to go for quantity and then select the thing with the highest quality.
That makes absolute sense, man. How do you even when you're doing this multiple ideas and testing out, how do you personally test whether an idea is deep enough to become a full game?
There are multiple things you need to look out for when comparing ideas and prototypes. I sort of have four main things I would say that you have to look for. The first one is appeal. So appeal is for gaining players. Then the second one is fun. Fun is for keeping players. The third one is scope, so how big your game is, and that's for making sure you can finish your game. And the fourth one, which is not as relevant for indie games, is monetization. But if you make free-to-play games or if you make mobile games or something along those lines, then that's also one very important thing you need to think about. So these are sort of your four main pillars: appeal, fun, scope, and monetization. And whenever you test and compare your ideas, you need to look at all four of them and see if your ideas and concepts are good in all four regards. So what you said is like how if an idea is deep enough, that is what I would count maybe into the fun pillar. That is obviously something you test for. But I would almost argue that making a game that is fun is kind of the easy part. So it's not necessarily maybe what I would start with nowadays.
Yeah.
I think more so start with the appeal side of things. So appeal is how do you draw people into your game? How do you make them excited for your game? And then once you figure that out, then building a fun game on top of that is kind of the easy part. Doing it the other way around is much more difficult. If you build a fun prototype that's really fun to play, but then you struggle to find a way to sell it to people, that's not a good situation to be in. It's better to do it the other way around. And that's why when we prototype, we usually start with like appealing fantasies, like something that already sounds cool on paper and that when you tell people about, they're already excited about it. One really powerful strategy you can also do there is making visual prototypes. So you open a game engine and you prototype the game, but you build no gameplay at all. You just put in objects and place them and arrange them, attach some materials to basically prototype the look of your game.
Yeah.
And that allows you to very quickly create some fake screenshots essentially of your game then you can show them to people. You can create multiple fake screenshots, maybe of different games, compare them to each other, see what's appealing, what people respond to. And then I would say building a fun game is maybe almost the second step, but obviously with the small asterisk that there are a billion different ways to make games, right? There's no right or wrong. You can choose whatever workflow works for you. That's just more over time. That's, I think, where my thoughts are converging to, is start with appeal, then go with fun. But I know that there are a lot of developers that also do it the other way around, and it oftentimes works out as well.
Yeah. No, but that's a very cool hack if you are building artistic games. When you're into making visually appealing games, that's a very nice hack where you don't have to build anything first, but you place it out in such a way that you can just show the screenshots and take the feedback. Also, when you have like a playable version of it, how important do you think is that early playtest for you? Like, you might have, because fun and engagement that you're talking about, fun could be subjective. You find it fun, but for a group of people that you know, friends and families, how do you go with that? What's your take on playtesting in the first initial phases?
You should play test as early as possible. There's always this problem that game developers have, that they're reluctant to play test because they know that certain systems aren't done yet, and they don't want to hear
Yeah.
that in the feedback. It's like, okay, I don't have the graphics yet, and I know if I'm gonna play test this now, people are gonna tell me that the graphics are not done yet. And it's like, I know that, so I have to finish the graphics before I have them play tested, right? And that's not the correct way to think about playtesting. It's just like, let people playtest the game, shut your mouth, don't say anything, and if you already know they're gonna say certain things, just let them say it. You don't have to defend it. You don't even have to give a disclaimer up front. Like, you don't even have to say, hey, this and this isn't quite done yet. Just let them play it. They will tell you the things that you know they're gonna say. They will say the graphics aren't done. They will say this and this feels crap, even though you know it feels crap. It's okay. Just let them play. Just let them say whatever they want to say. Like, don't have your ego can take it, is what I'm trying to say. Just and yeah, playtest early, playtest often. Fail faster is one thing you hear a lot. The faster you fail, the less time you waste. So if you just, the earlier you let people playtest the thing, the sooner you see what you need to change. So essentially it makes you more efficient. The more and the sooner you playtest, the faster you will arrive at a good result, because it's delusional to think that your first design is gonna be perfect. That's what you need playtesting for. It's to refine your design to get to a point where it's better and better and better.
Yeah, I
Right.
think I think that is absolutely true, man. Because even in smallest of the conferences or events, when you actually take your game to that, even if it's unfinished and you get that feedback from people over there, that's also like very crucial, because that's the real audience of your game. And um, like, I've seen it with my games as well, and it has drastically shaped the entire flow of the game, because you build it from one point of view, and then you get to realize, oh, this can be done with a very different. I also see some mistakes that people do while playtesting with a small group is they try to explain a lot while the people are playing it, right?
That's exactly what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah, instead just watch how people get frustrated, or say all sorts of things about your game. uh, yeah, I mean, that makes more sense, man. I
Yeah.
played Throne Fall, and let me tell you, the art style, it just like that's the thing that got me on Steam to actually go and play the game. Right,
Hmm.
it's beautiful. I was curious what really inspired Thronefall's minimalist, that art style plus that strategic loop, because usually, it's very, for the RTS games, it's usually a very complex and heavy loops, right? But this is like a very fun, but a light version of all that. How did you come to that part of the game?
It's mostly necessity and embracing our constraints, right? Because we're only a two-man team. We can't make a super complex RTS art style. We cannot pixel all of those buildings and so on. We can't make realistic 3D models for every building. That's not in the realm of possibility. Or I guess we could, but then it would take 5 times longer to make the game, and the game wouldn't even necessarily sell better. So
Yeah.
it's kind of one of the pillars that I also like to talk about is scope, right? So how big your game is, and essentially what I mean with that is how cost efficient are you with what you do. Like you can make a game in 1 year, or you can make the same game in 5 years. So we could have made Throne for like 3 times longer. We could have extended the production times to 3 times its size. But that doesn't mean it would have done better. So you kind of try to find the optimal size for each project where you get the most bang for your buck. And for Thronefall, that's just we were like, yeah, so the graphics are not really the main selling point here, so that's probably not what the majority of our resources should go into. And that's why we intentionally picked a very minimal art style. And then once you make the decision to go for a minimal art style, you obviously still try to do it tastefully, right? It's not like, okay, we're gonna neglect graphics, like graphics aren't important, so we're gonna make them very shit. It's more like graphics aren't important, so we're gonna make something that we can do very quickly, but that still looks okay. And I think for Thronefall that luckily worked out. I have to give credit to my partner Paul, who did most of the art for Thronefall. And essentially, we downloaded a Toon shader from the Unity asset store. Then we created a bunch of very, very simple 3D shapes in Blender, very low poly, very minimalist. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah,
Like
but all
there's
together,
no,
everything put together, it looks really beautiful.
yeah.
See, because it's you pick all sorts of shaders and all, but unless and until you have that vision of that color palette and how the contrast looks and how it appeals the players, you couldn't reach to that kind of a visual, even with minimalistic art style, right? And I think that same reflects in the other game as well, in Islanders as well, right? They're visually very beautiful. Um, One thing that you just mentioned was about the scope and you being two people studio, like two people working on a game, right? Your games were like, this is my observation, they feel very tight, they're focused, and they're very polished, right? How do you know, and this all comes to the scope of the game, how do you know when to stop adding features? Because this is a generic problem with a lot of failed indie games, because they run out of scope, they just go into the loop of feature creep, right? That's where
Mm.
most of the games don't finish. So what is your thought on that? Like, how do you make those decisions when to stop adding more features? These are like important ones, and is there any process that you follow for that?
I think it's a lot about the design philosophy you have going into it. A lot of people, the way they make games is they take a game they find cool. Like they have some games that they use as inspiration, and then they're like, I want to make something like that. But in order to make it unique and different, I have to add something on top, right? And if you make games like that, then you end up with a lot of feature creep, because you have to make everything that's already there plus put your own stuff on top of it. And that's just too much, especially for small indie teams. So if you want to take this approach of using other games for inspiration, then the first thing you need to do is you need to remove things. You need to remove things, and then you have room to add new things. But if the only thing you do is add new things to an idea, then it's just going to end up with too much. So for example, what we did with Thronefall is we took very strong inspiration from strategy games like Stronghold, Age of Empires, and so on. And then we were like, how can we reduce this to make it more manageable for us? So we said, okay, you can only place building on a couple of select fields. We also control which buildings you can place where. So we're gonna take that decision away from the player. We're only gonna have a couple of different units. You're not gonna be able to control your units with the mouse. You're only gonna be able to basically control the units with your character by making the units follow you around. So already we boiled it down to make it much simpler and more manageable for us. And that created new room for us to add things that we like. For example, we added a really cool perk system. We added a really cool upgrade system. We added lots and lots of enemy variety. And we made some really cool campaign. And the reason why we had the resources to create all of this is because we reduced it first. We boiled it down first, and then we added our own things to it. The same for Islanders. We were like, okay, let's take inspiration from city builders. Let's reduce all of the complexity. Let's only have one resource. Let's make it so you can actually build houses for free.
Yeah.
Like building doesn't cost anything in Islanders. So we reduced it very much. And then to make up for it, we were like, okay, now that we have room, what do we add instead? And it's like, we'll add procedurally generated islands. We'll add lots of different buildings because they're so simple to make for us, so we can add a ton of them. And I think that's a great way to make indie games is if you start with an inspiration point, which a lot of developers do, let's be honest, then start with reducing it, then add your own things. That's what I would recommend. Or if you want to take a different approach to it, then start with your idea and just be careful about how much stuff you add.
No, what I hear from you is there is a lot of planning and time put into the pre-production before you start, right? Like
Yeah.
like thinking about, okay, these are 10 things in an inspiration that we are looking at. Let's work, having that entire understanding of what to remove and what to add in the first, even before you start the development of the game, gives you a clear path of the entire scope of the game at least. And a lot of people do mistakes in the same thing, like they start with that basic idea and they just keep on adding and adding and adding without having like a clear path of that whole scope of the game, right?
Yeah. Adding is very dangerous. So you have to essentially, before you add anything, you have to find this you have to find this core of the game. Essentially, you have to find your 5 seconds of fun, or the repeatable thing that's very minimalist and small. And then once you have that, then you can start adding new things on top. The reason why a lot of people add things to their games is because they do it to fix problems, right? It's like, it's not interesting enough, so I have to add this and this and this. Or this isn't quite easy to understand enough. Okay, so I guess we'll add this and this and this and this to make it easier to understand. Or this dungeon is too short, so let's add this and this and this. And if your solution to every problem is to add new things, then of course you're gonna end up with a lot of feature creep. So you'll have to start finding other solutions for your problems, other solutions than adding more stuff.
That's well put, man. That's very very insightful. You've been doing content on YouTube for a long time now. How has YouTube, helped you in your journey? And has content creation changed the way you think about game development?
Yes. So I essentially started YouTube as a marketing tool for my games. I was like, I need some way for people to find my games. So I started a YouTube channel to promote my games. Now I think I have changed my idea for why I do YouTube quite a lot. I think YouTube is actually, having your own YouTube channel at the very least is not that useful for promoting your games, because you need a very big YouTube channel to really make a dent in your wishlist numbers.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, what's more efficient? Is it more efficient to build a 100,000 subscriber YouTube channel yourself? Or is it more efficient to give your game to a bunch of big channels that have 100,000 subscribers each and have them play your game.
Yeah.
And if you think about it from that perspective, then it's just like, yeah, your own channel is just a little drop
Yeah.
in the bucket, essentially. What really makes the difference is what all of the other content creators do. Like if there are like hundreds or thousands of content creators on YouTube that play your game, that's what makes the difference, not your one small channel, like almost no matter how big you are. But obviously, if you have 1 million subscribers or something, or multiple million, then it start gonna making a very big difference. But like for the majority of people who start YouTube channels, and even for people like me who have like mid-sized YouTube channels, I would almost argue it doesn't really make the biggest difference, and it is a crap ton of work to run a YouTube channel. So if you have the choice, I would recommend you invest the time into your game instead. I think that's better spent time. But to get back to your question, how has it changed how I perceive game development in general? Definitely yes, because there are other perks, I guess, to having a YouTube channel, and that is, for example, you get a lot of feedback from people for everything you do. That has helped immensely. So essentially, whenever I develop games and I have these open development processes where I share my progress on YouTube, you also get constant feedback from people. That is very helpful. And also you sort of get into this you sort of find the similarities between making games and making YouTube videos. There's a surprising amount of similarities where it's like you need to hook people when they start playing the game. Same on YouTube. If they start watching your video, you need to hook them somehow. Then you need to keep them engaged. Same on YouTube. You want to keep people engaged, so make sure they keep watching the video and so on. So there's a lot of interesting overlap for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So what is the strategy on YouTube now? Like what are you exactly focusing through content creation? If you're saying if your channel becomes like a very tiny piece of the entire marketing strategy, what is your goal now with that?
Two things. Firstly, I see YouTube as mostly a hobby now. Like I could stop doing YouTube and I would be completely fine.
Yeah.
Like there's no actual business reason for me to still do YouTube, except for one thing, and that is that it provides a bit of a safety net and a second leg to stand on. So if, for example, I have a bunch of games that fail, then I have an additional avenue to potentially go into, right? It's like I could still start spending more time on YouTube and maybe generate some revenue this way. It's like so it's a mixture of just a hobby and safety net, plus a couple of nice perks that you get from it. Like, for example, you get very easy access to lots and lots of playtesters. You get easy access to lots of feedback. Those are nice perks to have. I don't know if they warrant the excessive amounts of effort that you have to put into a YouTube channel, but as I like sharing my knowledge anyway, I'll take it.
No, I think you're absolutely right, because although my channel is very small, it's like around 21,000 subscribers now, but it has actually opened multiple doors for me when it comes to having yourself build your own personal brand. There were people I was not able to connect before, but because of this, it has given me a very easy access to the bigger folks as well, be it through the podcasting, be it through, even this example today, we are doing this podcast, right? It's one of the for YouTube, for me, is that one medium where I can actually connect globally with a lot of people, because there is some credibility out there. You've been sharing, the the best practices, the failures, all these experiences. So that gives you more of that credibility, that you can have that access to these people. Don't you think so?
True. You said that you're actually a small channel with 20,000 subscribers. I don't think that's small, and I think also you said I think in one of your emails that's one of the biggest game dev channels
Yeah, in India.
at very least when it comes to India, right?
Yeah.
How does the Indian game dev scene on YouTube look like?
I don't like, there are hardly 2 or 3 YouTubers who are into this space. Um,
Mm-hmm.
there are multiple people who are trying, which could be less than 1,000 subscribers, but it's more of a very burnout case. Like they do like 10 videos and then they stop.
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing this for last 6 years, and I had no plans to actually grow it this big. It was just my way of giving back to the community in India, because in India, when I graduated, it was back in 2007, when there was not enough um, content on YouTube where I can actually learn what game design is, what game development is, how do I get into this career. All these things were not available on internet a lot at that time. There was only, I think, Gama Sutra was a website. There was IGN. These were the 2 websites where you could find it, right? And then when in 2017, 18, I thought, what if I just, everything that I've accumulated so far in 10 years of my game development career, I can just put it out for free for people to, you know, learn. And then that's how it started. But then slowly a lot of things came in the journey. So I kept sharing those real failures, transparency out there. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that is something I don't do the technical stuff on YouTube. Like I cannot teach game development to anyone. I'm not a game developer. I'm a game designer. I'm a storyteller. I am working on a game as a game director right now, which is the game that I shared with you.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it is just showcasing the world of game development to the people who are very much wanting to get into this field. So that's my way of putting out content.
I mean, you seem to be doing something right. Otherwise, you wouldn't be where you're now. So, great job for that. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
the problem is that a lot of people they start YouTube channels without really having any value to add yet. So by the time I started my YouTube channel, I've already been making games for like 10 to 20 years almost. Not
Yeah.
20 is a bit more, but 10 to 15 years. So I already had some things to say when I started my YouTube channel, and then and I was kind of tinkering around a little bit. But then as soon as I released Islanders, my first successful game, that's when the channel really started taking off, because that's when people started taking me more seriously.
Yeah.
So I think actually once you make your first hit game, that is definitely the correct time to start a YouTube channel, because that's when people start getting really interested in what you have to say.
Yeah, absolutely. One quick question before I get into some generic stuff. I wanted to ask you, because you're working kind of solo, co-creating it with one other guy, but do you think because you're doing your own stuff, there is burnout or creative blocks that you get into? And if you do, how do you actually cope up with that?
Yeah, there's always so burnout happens when you overdo it, right? When you don't have a correct work-life balance anymore. And I think that has happened a couple of times to me, like not very extreme severe cases of burnout, but like definitely some minor burnout cases where I was like, oh Jesus, like if you find yourself just staring into the screen, like half an hour passes and you suddenly wake up and are like, oh, what else am I doing? That's when maybe you should take a bit of a break. Yeah. So especially before releases and so on, when you have deadlines coming up, it happens. But I guess it's just important to listen to your body a little bit and to not overdo it. So for example, what we also do is we usually do 6-hour work days. And if you, for something like game development that requires a lot of focus, a lot of attention,
Yeah.
6 hours is more than enough. After 6 hours, productivity starts dwindling very, very rapidly. So we do 6 hours a day, sometimes only 4 days per week, and then we have 1 day for other side projects or something. And that helps immensely to not get into burnout territory. So just spend less hours, because the extra hours you spend, they're not as productive as you think they are. Spend less time and spend them better. Yeah, would be my advice for that.
That's very nice. I don't think that it's 6 hours a day plus 4 or 5 days a week. I think that's a very balanced approach towards game development, because I don't think a lot of people kind of get to do that or even think of putting that sort of plan into their games, because end of the day it's your game and then you end up spending more hours into it, eventually spoiling everything. I mean, from the health perspective as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not worth it, because if your health is ruined, then your game suffers from that as well.
Yeah.
So
True.
first of all, you need to make sure that you're mentally fit, and that is the basis everything stands on, right? So you cannot afford to endanger that just to squeeze a couple more features into the game. It's absolutely not worth it. No.
Yeah. Cool, man. Before we wrap this up, just a couple of more questions that I wanted to ask you.
Mhm.
What do you think um, is the biggest myth about indie game success? Like, what is indie game success for you? Um, and what is a myth that has to be busted in this particular thought?
What do you mean? What is a myth?
I'm just saying, what is indie game success for you? What is success for you when you are making a game? And is there any kind of myth that needs to be busted when it comes to the success of an indie game?
I mean, success is a very subjective thing, right? Everybody defines it a bit differently, but the way most indie developers define success is that they fund your next project. So success is if you get to keep making games, essentially. And then if you're extra ambitious, then I don't know, you can have extra goals. Like there are some developers who are like, my goal is to make 5 million with this game or something. Well, that's the ambitious people. For most developers are just like, if I just get to keep making games, that's happiness, essentially. So yeah, that's where you want to get. You just want to. I would say I will agree to that definition of success. That success is if you get to keep making indie games full
Yeah.
time.
How many? But just to put it in terms of numbers, how many copies do you think is a decent number for you when it comes to success for your game?
It depends on how much time you spend on your game. The reason why most people say make small games is because you need to make less money to make it a success, right? If you make a game in 3 months, then you need to sell way less than if you make a game in 2 years. And also the same goes for the people who work on the game. If you make a game in a 2-people team, the way we do, then the barrier for success gets very, very low, actually. Whereas if you're a 10-person team, then your barrier for success is like 5 times higher than for our team, for example. So you need to do 5 times better if you have 10 people on your team. Right? So that's why I think the first strategy I would deploy is keep the game small, keep the team small. And then I don't know, for 2 people, you calculate the cost of living for the time period that you need to make the game, plus maybe also add the cost of living for the next game you want to make. So let's say we make a game in 1 year, and after that we want to make another game in 1 year. That means we need to be able to fund ourselves for 2 years or 2 people. So we need basically 8 years of funding. I'll never do math on camera, I tell you. But yeah, so usually what I look for on Steam is if a game has 10,000 reviews, or more, then you know it did really well, right? Like 1 or 2,000 reviews is, I think, almost already enough to make a living as a 1 or 2 person team if you make medium-sized projects to small projects. For example, I think Will You Snail got around 2,000 reviews. And by the way, reviews always roughly reflect to units sold. If you want to know how many units a game sold, you can roughly take the number of reviews and multiply them by 50. So if we say Will You Snail has 2,000 reviews, multiply by 50, then we can say it sold maybe around 100,000 copies, something like that. And that might be off by quite a big factor, might be 200,000, might be 50,000, but you get the rough
average
ballpark.
Yeah.
So,
Got it. So it's kind of simple math of how much time you put into it versus how much what number you need to reach for that break even and the profitability of the entire journey of that game, right?
That's exactly it. And it's so much easier to make that equation work in small teams and in short projects.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Cool. One last thing before we wrap this up. This is for a lot of people uh, worldwide, more from India, who are just figuring out things at this point. Because through my YouTube, I meet a lot of people who want to get into game development, but they're really inspired by all of you, by you, by Thomas, by a lot of good indie developers who have made successful games. If you had to this is an advice that I would ask from you. Like if you had to start from zero today, um, let's say with no YouTube, no past games success or anything, what would be your first move as a solo developer in 2025?
I think I would probably not start another YouTube channel, except for maybe as a hobby. I like, as mentioned, from a business perspective, I don't think that makes too much sense. I would just honestly invest all of my time and resources into making a game that's as good as it possibly can be, and especially spend a lot of time in pre-production to make sure that I don't waste my time and that I make the correct game. So in pre-production, you validate that your game is appealing, that people want to have it. You validate that it's fun, that people want to keep playing when they play it. And you also validate that it's small enough that you can make it in a fast enough of time. And only once I've validated those 3 things, I would then move on to production. I would do relatively short production cycles. I would try to make games in like half a year to a year, probably, and then just make multiple games. And if you want to really maximize your chances of success, then I would even probably do games that are somewhat similar to each other so that I can reuse large parts of my code base.
In the same
so that
genre,
the next time,
in the same
yeah.
genre, you mean?
So, yeah, if you optimize for success, then you want to keep making games in the same genre, essentially, because that way you build a bigger following and you get to reuse more of your code. So you get more efficient and you build a bigger following. So if you stay in one niche, that's generally better, except if your niche is crap. Then you have to switch niche, of course. But generally speaking, if success is what you optimize for, then you probably stick with one genre and just get the best at making those kind of games and then just pump them out.
And
Yeah.
while this is happening, like say 6 months, 1 year of development I'm doing, while this is happening, what are your thoughts on the marketing side of the game? Like, I don't have any past, I don't have any followers, and I'm building the game. How do I make sure that I at least sell good amount of copies? How does that marketing start for me if I'm a very new to this whole scene?
Yeah. So there are only two ways to get lots and lots of eyeballs on your game for indie developers. There are more ways for people with big marketing budgets and so on, but for indie developers, there are exactly two strategies to get eyeballs. The first one is Steam. If Steam likes your game, they will send crap loads of traffic to your store page. And this is how we succeeded with Islanders. Like, we didn't do any excessive marketing. It was just like, Islanders was a good game, and the people on Steam bought it when they visited the store page. So Steam is tracking all of those numbers in the background, similar to what YouTube does, right? YouTube tracks how many people click your video, YouTube track how many people watch your video all the way to the end, and so on and so forth. And Steam does the exact same thing. They track how many people click on your game, how long do the people stay on your store page, how many of those people buy your game. They even track how long do these people play your game for. And with all of those metrics, they get a very, very good and accurate idea for how good your game is. And if Steam deems your game worthy, then they will show it to tons and tons of people, and they will give you an unfathomable amount of traffic. And that's why I'm like, you can sort of trust the algorithms a little bit. You need to be a bit smart about it, because there's a dark side of Steam where it's like, if you do zero marketing, then you'll likely end up there. Nobody will even find your game, and Steam will think your game is some sort of AI trash or something and not promote your game. So what you need to do is you need to bring in a couple of people to your store page to basically prove that you're trustworthy. And from then on, Steam will generate automatic traffic for you if your game is good enough. But in order to kickstart the Steam algorithm, what you need is the second strategy to get eyeballs these days, and that is content creators. So you can only get eyeballs either directly through Steam or through content creators. And content creators, there's of course the option of becoming a content creator yourself, but the easier option is to reach out to existing content creators and ask them to play your game. So that's what I would do. I would reach out to as many content creators as possible, show them my game, give them a demo, participate in the Steam Next Fest, and make sure that they, you obviously want them to play the demo also before release. That's what demos are really good for nowadays, is you can give them to content creators before release to create some buzz before your game comes out. Yeah. So that's what I would do. I would hand out the demo to content creators and hope that a lot of them play them and generate a lot of wish lists. And then ideally, the Steam algorithm and the content creators, they sort of feed off of each other. Content creators also use Steam, so if they get a recommendation from Steam, they might also play it.
Yeah.
And then people who see the game on YouTube or whatever, they will check it out on Steam, which will give a positive signal to the Steam algorithm and so on. So there are a couple of small things you need to do to kickstart this vicious cycle of positivity. And you also need a game that allows for this cycle to even happen. And that's why it's so important to validate appeal and fun, because you cannot do this with a game that's not appealing and fun. And absolutely. I think a lot of people get this entirely wrong about marketing. They think it's like, the reason why my game failed is marketing. No, it's not. The reason why your game failed is because it wasn't fun or it wasn't appealing enough. If you have a game that's fun and appealing enough, then it's extremely, I wouldn't say extremely difficult, but I think it's almost difficult to mess up the marketing if you have a really good game.
Yeah.
The way I think about marketing is like a very short checklist. It's like, reach out to content creators, participate in Steam Next Fest, have a very good Steam page. That's kind of it. And if your game's good enough, then it'll just catch fire that way.
Yeah. So for you, YouTube is the number one platform, or any other platforms that you look at? Twitter?
I mean, if it's not you being the content creator yourself, then it doesn't really matter that much. You just reach out to content creators wherever they are. You can reach out to YouTube content creators. You can obviously reach out to Twitch streamers.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you can even reach out to TikTok creators, like whatever's hot at the time. I don't really care. But I would say at the moment, YouTube and Twitch are the biggest ones for games. Yeah.
Got it. Got it. Cool, Jonas. Thank you for doing this. It was a very insightful conversation. Loved having you on the podcast. Any last piece of advice that you want to give to the audience?
Don't give up. Keep making games.
All right.
Peace and love peace and love to India.
Yeah, you should definitely come to India, man.
Yeah, I will. It's on my bucket list. I have to see it before I bite the grass. Yeah.
All right. Thanks a lot, man. It was great. Great having you.
Thanks for the invitation. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.